everybody, and welcome to another episode of Book Goodies, the author series of podcasts and also services for authors. I'm your host, Deborah Carney, and I have with me today LinDee Rochelle. Hi, LinDee. How you doing?
Hi, Debbie. I'm just doing awesome. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I got to talk to like six authors today, so.
You're just I get the fun part though. We're going to wind it up tonight, huh?
Yeah. Actually, I have one after you, and she's all the way in the Netherlands, so that's going to be really fun.
That will be.
Now, why don't you introduce yourself to our folks and let them know a little bit about you?
Okay. Again, my name is LinDee Rochelle, and I am the owner of Penchant for Penning. And I know that that's hard to understand sometimes when you're in a podcast or an interview on the phone or whatever, or on the radio. And when I thought of that name, I loved it way back in the 80s. I'm in danger here telling you, what's going on with my age. But, it sounded like a good idea at the time. What can I say? So Penchant for Penning is my business name, and I love helping authors. And what I do is not only some book editing, but also author consulting. And these days with the landscape of publishing, we all need a little bit of help, I think.
Yeah. So basically, you offer an editing service, which is what a lot of our self-published guys need. They need to have access to editors because they may not think it right away, but then after a while somebody's going to say, hey, somebody who's not family is going to read their second or third draft and say, you need to get this out to somebody who knows how to edit, and then they can come to you.
Exactly. It's so important these days, especially because so many people are self-publishing. It used to be with traditional publishers, when you actually managed to score a contract, they would have an editing service that, took care of you, or they made sure that you had a professionally edited book. But these days, with everyone being able to put up their ebooks without any help whatsoever, they sometimes forget that people still want to read quality books. And they consider books that are not edited professionally as not being, maybe the author didn't feel that their own book is worth the effort and the money that you have to put out. Mm-hmm. But, you have to believe in your book, and you have to compete with so many other people.
And the other thing, too, is when you're having friends and family review stuff, and when you're reading it yourself, you can project what you intended. And your friends and family can hear what you intended because they know your personality. So when you send something out to a person who's disconnected from you and they read it, they can tell you where the problems are and the things that you thought were clear that were totally not. And I love telling this story about one of the very first authors I interviewed. And she said that she had a beta reader that would come to her house and read the book in front of her. She would sit there, not staring at her, but, they would be in the same room, and she would be paying attention to, her reactions to things. And, one day she was sitting there and she was reading, and she had been reading a while, and the author said, "Did you read this part over here?" And she's like, "Yeah." And, "Well, you were supposed to laugh." And she said, "Well, I didn't think it was funny." She goes, No, read it again. Really, that was supposed to be funny. You were supposed to laugh. And she goes, "Honey, that's not funny." And that's exactly the kind of thing you need to go to an editor for.
That is so true, so true. And it's the little nuances, too. You may even have an English teacher, but if they're not skilled in editing or used to editing all the time, there's the little nuances. One of my pet peeves is repeating the same word like 3-4 times in a paragraph. And people do that all the time. Mm-hmm. And I just, I cringe every time I see that. You need to keep the flow going for the reader. And if they read the same word several times, then they're going to think, well, couldn't they think of anything else to say?
Yeah, seriously. And I think it's important to note for people that there's a couple different levels of editing. And one level is copy editing, which is
Yes.
your grammar and your punctuation and, your spelling and those things. And then there is content editing, which goes along with, does this make sense?
Yes.
And
yes.
that's the kind of editing, a lot of people think of an editor and they think, oh, well, I know grammar, I know punctuation. But what they really need is a content editor.
Right.
To tell them.
I was just going to say, I have some authors who use 3 and 4 editors. And even, 1 or 2 after me. Mm-hmm. I'm not perfect.
Yep.
I try to be. We all do.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you're editing, it's the same as anyone else. You have interruptions, you have distractions, and sometimes things just get by. So it never hurts to have more than one editor. And oftentimes, if you're doing historical novels or things like that, you're going to have another editor anyway for a different type of reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say the more editors and the more eyes you have on your book before you actually publish, the better it is.
Yeah, and that's especially important for historical novels and, period pieces or pieces even about a specific location that isn't somewhere that you live.
Exactly.
You need to have somebody go through, and yes, it's fiction, and yes, it's made up, but if you're using real references and they really don't fit, your reader is going to go... if they got this
might not catch them. Yeah, because I'm maybe, like I have an author that I work with that writes historical novels during the Civil War period.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't live there.
Exactly.
I didn't study it. So he has an editor review it that has studied that period and knows that period, knows the military, and because he talks a lot about his protagonist is a military man.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he talks about a lot of that type of... stuff for the wars and of that period. And of course I don't know that. So he uses me for a different reason, and you certainly have to have that kind of editor when you have a specialty book.
Yep. And they're out there. Authors don't think you have to do it all yourself. Make sure, you can go look for people like LinDee, and she can connect you with some of these other people that, if you need something fact checked, she can help you find that and hook you up with that. All right, and then what were the other part of it is the coaching. So.
Yes, and that's part of what I do as a consultant. I usually have new authors because I gravitated, or they gravitate towards me, you might say, because I have worked with small press publishers and self-publishing publishers, you might call independent is what I prefer to call them, independent publishers, and I've worked with them for nearly 10 years. So I know that industry a lot, so I get a lot of new authors. And when they come to me, by the time they've done any kind of research online or talked to any of their friends, they're literally dazed and confused by the time I get them.
Yeah.
Because there's so much out there, and you don't know who to believe, you don't know who to trust. So, being in the industry for quite a while, I know some of the names, I know who was really terrible to begin with as far as some publishers, and who has cleaned up their act, and maybe they're better now than they used to be. And so I help them navigate the waters, you might say, for what publishing is like today. And it's changed. It has changed dramatically in the last 5 to 10 years, and it's going to continue to do so. So we really have to be aware of the technology that keeps changing everything, and just not get comfortable. If you're going to be an author with multiple books, you can't get comfortable.
Right.
It's going to keep changing.
Keep changing. And plus, as you're talking about, you have multiple platforms now. Somebody might say, I only want to do an ebook, and you can say, well, we can start with an ebook, but you really should do a print book as well.
Yes.
Or they want to dive in with a hardcover, and you're like, no, this would be better to start out with.
Wait on that a minute, yeah.
And you can, one of the things I'm hearing is that, there's different publishing tactics for different types of books.
Yes.
And you may, like right now, I self-publish everything because I'm a photographer, and, I put together pictures in a logical order and add some text to it. And on the Kindle Fire, it's a beautiful book. Yeah. And yet, if I wanted to do a coffee table book out of that same material, that's a totally different path to go down.
It is.
And you, authors really need to hear from you yes, this will be fine for you to self-publish, or no, let's use this small press, or yeah, you should be able, you would be best with a business publishing house,
Right.
business book, or cookbook, or whatever your specialty is. So,
and many of them are so new to publishing that, they've written a book and they really haven't looked into publishing or researched as much as they should, you might say, to do their due diligence, that they don't even really know the fact that if you're a self-publisher, quote unquote, we use that term generically like Kleenex. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the term self-publishing is used usually erroneously.
Right. A lot of people...
Yeah, because a true self-publisher is one who goes to a printer, right, and works with the printer, and the author does everything themselves. They become the publisher. They get their own distribution. They get their own fulfillment house. They do all of that. Where independent publishing, which is what I like to call it, is when you go to someone like, Amazon's CreateSpace or Lightning Source. Well, Lightning Source is a little bit different. See, there you are. There's the problem. They're a little bit different. So, this is what I try to do is to explain to an author what the differences are. We talk about their book and what they want to do with it. So many of them don't even know what they want to accomplish with their book. Right. Because some are, this is business books. There are, many nonfiction books, and then there are fiction books. And, do they want to just write it? Do they want to do a legacy to their family, or do they really want to, try to be the next bestseller? Yeah. And so many don't even know. They don't have a goal. They just know they wrote a book and they want people to read it. Exactly. And they haven't, so many have not realized that they do need to become a business, basically, if they're going to independently publish. Yeah. Yeah, they need to do that, and they need to have a business plan and a marketing plan, and Oh, now you just scared a whole bunch of authors. I'm sorry. Marketing plan, business plan. I just want to write a book and have it go out there. Yeah, exactly, and that's what I get too. And so those are the people that are probably going to be better off with a company that'll take charge and do a little bit more for them. Yeah. Which is what you're, the independent presses and the small press, and things like that. And what are some of the ways that you recommend for authors to develop their sense of a purpose for their book? Like if you're coaching them and they're telling you, well, this is what I want to write, or this is what I wrote. How do you get them to focus on their goal? Sometimes that's a little bit difficult, and that's why, you have to explore with them, and sometimes it'll take an hour or two or a couple of weeks even to have several conversations to, try to determine what their goal is with their book and why did they write it in the first place. Do they only want one book, or do they want to create a series? Do they want it to be available to schools? Is it something that's instructional and might help a lot of people in that respect? Or is it something that they can use if they're going to go out into the lecture arena, and do presentations? If they're writing a novel, is it going to be a series type of thing? Or do they just have, I know one lady she's done a little bit of both. She's done two of her books she's done in a series. And then there's a couple of books that just have this one-time thing. She had this idea, she wrote it, she's done with it, that's it. Yep. So, the author, it sometimes is very telling to the author. I do ask some very in-depth questions and make them think about what it is they want to accomplish with their book. Well, and that's really tough for a lot of authors because they really don't know, and they really need to hear somebody dig it out. Right. Well, you know what I had one author tell me, Deborah, I don't mean to interrupt, but he did say that very same thing. He says, I don't know the questions to ask myself. Exactly. That's why I came to you. What are you for? Yeah, this is why I came to you, is because I don't know what questions to ask myself. You're right, too. He doesn't know he didn't know the right questions to ask or the right places to research. What research terms am I supposed to use? I can't do it if I don't know what to use. Right. And so that was a great point. And now tell us some more about your services. Go a little bit more in depth about what you do. Well, to be specific, what I do is set up a program, usually 3 to 4 months long. I'd like to do 6 months, but so many authors, they're leery in the beginning, and I keep my rates very affordable because I know most authors, one, if it's their first book, they don't want to spend a lot of money because they don't know whether they're any good.
Right.
And so I try to keep everything at a low key, you might say. And we explore all their options. We find out what it is they want to accomplish. We talk about what their target markets are. Some of them just say, well, I want everyone to read it. We know that. Okay? Mm-hmm. But you need to start somewhere that is specific to, let's say, maybe even the background of the book, maybe what you're writing about is a particular country, or setting your novel in a specific area or country. Those are the people you're going to target first. They have the highest interest in your book.
Yep.
And so many authors think that they want to go directly to Oprah. And I would like to do that someday, but you need to start within your own backyard.
Right.
Become a big fish in a small pond in your neighborhood and in your community, in your city. And that's where you start with the marketing and with the PR. And then PR. That's a whole other story. And, another aspect of the consulting about media. We talk about media and what they can expect, and how that we might be able to approach them.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
That's so important too, because a lot of writers are, a lot of authors are introverts, or like you said, they don't have the competence yet.
Yes.
And they're like, you want me to talk to the media?
No, exactly.
What do you want me to do? And I love your point about starting local, because I'm hearing more and more of that. Support your local independent bookstore by offering to do a reading or a book signing, and also locations in your in your book, locations that are in your book. Go to those places.
Absolutely. My author, for instance, who writes about the Civil War, he loves Valley Forge.
Mm-hmm. And he goes to visit, or he...
Let me see now. Actually, there was and I have another lady who set her story in Greece, actually.
Okay.
And that was also in an early period. And so, she's been not advertising, but, contacting the PR and everything in Greece, and she has some contacts there. And so she has a whole... target market that is separate from the U.S. I mean, that's awesome when you can do something like that.
Yep. And a lot of people don't think of marketing to their locations. So, all right. So marketing, and then PR, the big scary PR. You do press releases, or is there more? Are those going by the wayside, and you're doing?
That's another discussion, definitely, and one that is ongoing for sure. Just like everything else in publishing, it's the same, obviously, with the media. Their industry is changing as well, and dramatically. The press release is still somewhat necessary, and it's especially nice to have it in your media kit, whether you ever send anything off, to to the media or not. It's just nice to have. But they are still necessary to a point. There's a lot of online posting that's done now, and it's more of the networking. More of the media are using Facebook, and they are using Twitter, so it is a very changing landscape, and something that, again, you have to kind of keep up with on the technology.
Yep. And, the way we found each other was through Help a Reporter Out, which is a newsletter that goes out 3 times a day, full of pitches from people like me, or full of queries from people like me that need to have guests on, our podcasts and our blogs. And, we need information about the industry and what's going on. And instead of me having to go out and try to find all you folks, I just put a query in. And then you guys go through and you read it and you say, oh, I have something I can say on that subject. And your authors can do that too by going through, or you can do it for them, go through the newsletter to find queries. I find people now that I don't have time to read help a reporter out all day, every day, the 3 times a day that it comes out. And people will send me queries that they think that I would be interested in. Friends will take and copy that and send me in an email and say, you should go answer this one. And, so...
I do that all the time to my authors, the ones that I've done edited books for. Yeah. And one of my clients actually is a former Olympic skater, so guess what we're doing right now?
Yeah.
And he's written a book, so we do, I do that all the time. And then on the other side of that, authors can also use that to query everyone else that gets Harrow, because I did that when I wrote my book, Blast From Your Past, Rock and Roll Radio DJs, the first 5 years, because I needed to get information about rock and roll radio, pioneering rock and roll radio DJs, and how was I going to do that?
Yep.
And so I sent that query out, and it was awesome. I just had everyone come to me, and you can do that as an author. Get people who, have specialized information. Maybe one of your characters does collectibles or something, in a particular item.
Yep.
And you want to learn more about that item and who else collects and all that other good stuff. Mm-hmm. Perfect way to do that.
Yeah. Great way to do research, great way to find people to cooperate with on projects, and great way to find people that you can interview and to find out if there's an interest. If you put out a query, like if I had put out a query about authors that want to talk about their books, or services that want to talk about their services, and I only got like 2 answers, then I would know that that's something nobody cares about.
Yes.
And instead, I got a lot of really good pitches back to me, and I'm actually going to go back through the list and see if I missed anybody, because I've gotten so many good interviews out of it. And yes, some of this information is going to eventually turn into a book, but it's, you're gathering information from all across, all around the world. I've interviewed authors and service providers all around the world. So, So the first thing you do when an author comes to you is you have the question and answer session.
Yeah, I have a consult. My first consultation, usually about 20 minutes or so, is free. And so I discuss with them some of the basics at that time. What is your book about? Is it published yet? Or, what stage are you in other words? What is it that you think you want to do first? And that's a telling question right there, because most of them are not understanding what needs to be done, and they haven't really established what the priorities are, either once you've published your book, or even if they haven't published yet, what do they do after it is? Mm-hmm. So, we talk about some of that stuff, and we just kind of get to know each other on that first consultation. And then after that, we have another session or 2, and then determine, that's how I set the program. I don't actually have a step-by-step advertised program that people can see on my website, because every author and every book is different.
Yep.
And so I talk with them, and we establish what it is they need and what we can do within a certain time period, and then we discuss that and what my time is, and what the rate's going to be, and come to an agreement on that.
So that's really important, that you figure out what they need and what they want.
Yes.
And now, what are some ways that you recommend authors market their books?
That's such a convoluted question right now.
Okay, let's stick to social media. So, most authors are going to need some type of social media.
Yes. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn.
Okay.
Those are the top 3. Pinterest is getting a lot of interest now, and that's visual, which is very good for authors, especially those who have photographs associated with their book, or illustrations, or, something of that sort. So Pinterest is good for that. Those are the top ones. And then go into the blogs. If you can do set yourself up for a blog tour, that's a great way to market. There's just so many different ways right now. But one of the things that we do when I'm working with an author is establish what are those top maybe 4 or 5 things that they can do. Because you can spend your whole day and nothing else on just networking and marketing.
Right.
And while you may want to do that, once a week, I mean, it could take up everything and leave you no time for writing or anything else that needs to be done, house cleaning and laundry.
Eating.
Eating, yeah. So, I mean, it really can be very time-consuming, as everyone, I think, has found out with this social networking. But it can certainly be helpful, too. I sold a book for one of my authors because I was talking with someone on Facebook, and she was interested in pets, and this was a book about special needs dogs.
Nice.
She sent me an email and said, I just bought the book.
Nice.
Awesome.
And what do you think about the social networks that are book specific, like Goodreads or Shelfari or?
Goodreads I've had some good experiences with. I like Goodreads. I don't get to work it as much as I'd like to. Again, you have to kind of pace yourself on the social networking.
Right.
I think mix and matching, so you have a few of the standard social networking and then a few of the ones that ones that are book specific.
Okay.
Would be too, obviously.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Well, it's been lovely talking to you. I love that services like you exist now, and that's, a lot because of the way the publishing industry is going, and it's creating a new side industry, It is, absolutely. And that's how it is with my day job, quote unquote, market. It's affiliate marketing and internet marketing, and you have to keep up with the technology in order to keep up with, doing the best thing for your clients. And our industry didn't exist in 1994, And it's the same thing with you. You can be doing book consulting for a long time, but now there's so much more that you can offer, and it's so much easier to reach a larger number of people.
Oh yes, that's awesome in many different ways.
Yep.
Frustrating sometimes, but awesome in many ways.
All right. Well, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet?
Okay, my website is Penchant, that's Penchant, FOR, Penning, PENNING.com. Love the name, but
I love it too. It's very interesting.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it over the years. It's just really hard. Like I said, it's got too many letters that all sound the same when you're on the radio or podcast. So, but penchantforpenning.com, and you can learn more about me. I have a bio there and some of my services, and then I also have a penchantforpenning.com blog, and you can reach that from the website as well.
Okay. And what about your Twitter or Facebook?
I do. I have Twitter. Both of them are under LinDee Rochelle, LinDeeRochelle. Okay. And my handle. See, we used to have CB handles. Remember?
I know, yeah.
My handle on Twitter is Irish Writer. IRISHWRITER.
All right. I'll have to go find you tonight and follow you.
So come on, say hi.
I will. I talk. So for those of you that are listening on iTunes or on another podcatcher, please go to BookGoodies.com, where you can find this podcast and many others. You can do a search for LinDee, and the podcast that she's on will show up, and with little notes with links to all of her websites. And also, while you're there, you can go up to the top of the page and click on, there's 2 links, Be Our Guest or Contact Us. And that one you can offer to be our guest on a podcast, or you can suggest a topic that you would like covered. And we'll see if we can't find somebody that can speak to it. And we also have a link for you to tell us about your book. And if you can put all your book information into a 1-page form, and that will create a blog post for us that we can put up on our website about your book. And again, that's BookGoodies.com. And you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at Twitter/BookGoodies and Facebook/BookGoodies and Pinterest/BookGoodies. So we're everywhere too. So our one last thing is we would like to thank Geekcast.fm for hosting all of our podcasts and many others on internet marketing, working from home, and of course writing books and marketing your books. So, again, LinDee, thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. It's been delightful, and thank you for all you do for authors. That's wonderful.
Well, thank you. I like being helpful, and I learn as much as I'm learning along with everybody else. I feel like learning is never ending, and this series of podcasts has actually been very, very good for me, as well as getting the word out about the authors. So, and their services. That's just really important. So, all right, everybody, thank you for listening, and get out there and get writing, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.